Hello everyone, this is Jason from Primetime Aquatics. In this video, I am really excited to bring you a species profile on the Cardinal Tetra. These are amazing fish, and we got some awesome footage of them in a 3,000 gallon tank, and there were many hundreds of Cardinal Tetras in this tank. Hope you enjoy the video. Appreciate you being here. So this is a 3,000 gallon aquarium that housed hundreds, if not thousands of tetras and a lot of Cardinal Tetras, as you're going to see throughout this video. Cardinal Tetras are really cool fish with a ton of color, and they stay relatively small. They come from South America, where they are primarily found in the Orinoco River. The water there is on the softer side with a lower pH, and we'll get into the water parameters here in a moment. But like I said, these are great fish, and these were the largest Cardinal Tetras I had ever seen. Often when you see them in a store, they're usually an inch, if not smaller. These were every bit 2 inches, and they were very round for a Tetra, so they were doing quite well in this very large tank. The females generally get a little bit larger than the males, and they tend to be a little bit more rounded than the males. The coloration, as you can see, you get that really beautiful blue stripe. Now the difference between the Cardinal Tetra and the standard Neon Tetra is the Cardinal Tetra gets the red all the way along the body, where the Neons, they go about halfway. I tend to prefer the Cardinal Tetra look over the standard Neon Tetra. By the way, if you are looking for high quality Cardinal Tetras, check out flipaquatics.com. I will put their information in the description below. They are a channel sponsor that sells fantastic fish. The temperament of these fish are very, very peaceful. So the Cardinal Tetra is not a fish that you're going to put in a tank that has aggressive fish. And we'll get into the tank mates in a moment, but this is definitely a community type fish. Lifespan is around 3 to 5 years. The better water quality you give them that meets their water parameters, the longer they're going to live. Now their water parameters are a little bit interesting. In our fish room, with the water that we have, our water is generally too hard and the pH is too high to successfully keep Cardinal Tetras. I would say this is a fish that really thrives in that pH of around 5.5 to 6.5. You can go up to around neutral, pH of 7, but once you get too far beyond a pH of 7, they tend not to be as healthy. So I would say a good pH range is somewhere between 5 and 7. And for the most part, soft water is a must, somewhere between maybe 1 to 4 degrees. Again, for our water, it's far too hard, pH is far too high to successfully keep them in our fish room. Water quality does need to be good. This is definitely not a fish that I would add to an uncycled brand new tank, because the inevitable ammonia and nitrite spikes will wreak havoc on this fish. You definitely want an established tank, and you really want to try to be within those water parameters. Now when it comes to tank mates, you do have to keep the water parameters in mind. I see a lot of recommendations online where, yes, the fish from a temperament perspective would get along just fine, but the water parameter is just way off for some of the suggested tank mates. So some suggested tank mates that might do well: first, Cardinal Tetras belong in a big group. As you can see throughout this video, these are fish that should be kept in a bare minimum of 6. Really, they should be kept 10, 12 or more, and you will really start to see that shoaling behavior. So keep them in a group, and that will definitely help them stay out and be a little bit more active. Other types of Tetras can be a good option. So your Neons, your standard Neons, black Neons, golds. We've done all kinds of species profiles, which I will put in the description below if you want more information on potential tank mates. Ember Tetras work out really well. In this tank, you will see these guys in with the Bleeding Heart Tetras. There were Rummy Nose in this tank. There were Emperor Tetras. There were obviously Discus, which, believe it or not, work just fine. And actually that is a common combination, as they have Discus and the Cardinal Tetra together. A lot of the Rasboras work just fine. They stay on the smaller side. Cherry Barbs, you can do a small Gourami like a Honey Gourami. Otocinclus, bristlenose plecos work if you're looking for something that is going to kind of keep the tank algae free. Caridina shrimp would work out fairly well. They generally enjoy the same water parameters. Cory cats, bettas could potentially work. I would say if you're going to try to keep cardinal tetras and bettas together, just make sure your cardinal tetras are well fed. That will definitely reduce the likelihood that the bettas would be fin nipped. Hatchet fish, as I mentioned, the discus here, if you don't have a tank large enough for discus, but you're still looking for that centerpiece fish, rams, apistogramma, angelfish, all may be options. I prefer to keep the cardinal tetras minimum of 74 degrees. They can go up to 85, but again, you often see them with discus because they can take those higher temperatures along with the discus. When we feed our fish, we generally feed all North Fin foods, North Fin flakes and sinking pellets. These fish will do great with a high quality fish food. They would also go crazy for things like live baby brine. They would love some frozen bloodworms and some frozen brine shrimp from time to time. Tank size. Now, when it comes to the tank size, keep in mind that these fish are going to be kept in groups. Again, the bare minimum is 6. I think if you're going to do this fish the proper justice it deserves, you really are looking at least 10 to 12, because these are fish that can get to 2 inches. And I know when you're looking at them at a pet store, you're often seeing them, like I said, 1 inch or less, and they look like small nano fish, but when full grown, they're actually fairly large for a tetra, about 2 inches. So a 20-gallon is probably the minimum that I would recommend if you're going to keep them in the group that's going to allow them to shoal and allow them to show their confidence. So 20-gallon is about as small as I would go. When you're decorating the tank, I would definitely prefer to have, as you see in this aquarium, a darker background, a darker substrate. The substrate doesn't matter if it's sand or gravel, because these fish do not interact with the substrate whatsoever. They are going to be mid to top water shoaling fish. So if you want to do gravel, that's fine. Sand is also fine, but I generally would like to keep it on the darker side for both our substrate and our background, because that's going to allow the fish to show the most color. Definitely like to add some rocks and some driftwood to the tank. Plants, either fake or real, are going to provide a little bit of cover so that your tetras feel more confident. We tend to lean towards live plants in most of our aquariums, and so that's what we would do, but the fake plants are fine if you don't feel like dealing with live plants. Now, if you're going to be breeding these cardinal tetras, it is going to take a little bit of effort. In fact, it's going to take a lot of effort. Most tetras are going to be egg scatterers, and so generally speaking, what people will do when they breed tetras is they will put them in a tank, often a 10 to 20 gallon, put a group in there, put a spawning mop in that tank. But here with the cardinal tetras, you really have to dial in the water parameters and make sure that you have softer water with a lower pH. They will usually spawn once a day, once every couple days. You take the spawning mop out, you put it in a separate tank that still has those same water parameters. The fish will usually hatch in a day or two. They're going to be absolutely tiny, in which case you're going to need to feed them infusoria, and then once they get large enough to take live baby brine, you'll shift to that, and then eventually the flake foods. So they're not necessarily easy fish to breed, but they are absolutely magnificent. As you can see, there is just so much color. Again, they are a peaceful addition. If you have the water parameters for these fish, they can be a great addition. Again, if you want more information on tank mates, check out the description below. We give you plenty of information there. Appreciate you being here, and we'll see you in the next one.